It might take about 5 minutes, just bear with us. Maybe I can introduce ourselves first lah. So I'm SY, I'm representing SGRainbow together with Nish today. So we are actually a GBQ organization that is serving the LGBTQ folks or as a social organization, we do host a couple of social programs, awareness and knowledge translation kind of activities. So yeah, after COVID, this is one of our first awareness program alongside Dr. Martha Lee. So Dr. Martha Lee, if you want to introduce yourself as well.
Hi, everyone joining and still joining. Thank you so much for coming. We like people who come. So today we're going to be talking about the anus and everything around the anus. So if you have questions, feel free to type it in the chat box. We're just waiting for one more person. So I'm with SGRainbow, SY, and Nish. Yeah. So oh yes, so me, I'm a relationship counselor and clinical sexologist for the last 13 years, since 2009. And I work with individuals, couples who have all kinds of relationship and sexuality challenges. So SGRainbow and I, we did recently Sugar and Spice, like a community sharing. Everybody come in and share their stories around their anus. And then we realized people were still very shy to talk about it. And, you know, we just had such a good chemistry, the three of us. And then we said, hey, let's do a Instagram live. Maybe this knowledge can help more people. And in fact, if you realize this, in popular media in Singapore, okay, now I'm talking about mainstream media, they will never talk about anal sex because, you know, just across the borders, it's called sodomy. So this is so terrible for anybody who wants knowledge, who needs knowledge around the anus, because we are really not doing them any favors. And so that is the reason why we really need to be talking about the anus. What more when it's anal August this month. You may be coming across a lot of social media posts around the anus. Please brush out on your knowledge because it is very important to have as much information as you can around your sexuality, because this is your body. You deserve to know what's good for you and also to speak up for yourself. So, sorry, Nish, you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, hi everyone. Okay, so my name is Nish. Apologies, if my voice is like this because I'm a bit sick. So I'm one of the program coordinators for SGRainbow. Then yeah, we're just doing this event today. Oh, MYRainbow has just joined. Hello.
Hi all. Sorry for the delay.
All good.
Hello.
All good. Hello. We are just actually doing a round of introductions about our organization as well as ourselves. So do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Whoever goes first. Are you talking about me?
Yeah.
We have done it.
One round. So it's your turn.
Oh damn! I missed your introduction. What do you want me to include? Just my name, my organization, and all.
Sure.
What else?
That'll be perfect.
I am here representing MYRainbow. So just a quick intro about what MYRainbow is. Basically, it's kind of like SGRainbow as well, just that this is like the Malaysian counterpart. So a bit more about us is we are a non-profit community that as well seek to empower like the LGBT community here based in Malaysia. And our aim is to kind of like develop a role model for the community. So notice that I mentioned non-profit community instead of non-profit organization because we are by no means an organization. We are a community. So we are part of the community and we're doing something for the community. So it's not an organization that way. And MYRainbow was actually established back in 2018. And again, our goal is to focus on development of our community itself. And then we've conducted things like, physical and virtual engagement activities because of, COVID happened. So only virtual. So my role in MYRainbow as well. So I am part of the program lead. So we design and initiate community engagement and enablement activities to spark interest within our community here in Malaysia. It could be various themes and topics pertaining to the community. So that's just the gist of it.
Perfect. So actually, I'm going to try and speak up a bit because I've gotten feedback that I'm a bit soft, but I think that's perfect. And we actually invited MYRainbow to join us precisely because we felt that a lot of these conversations occurring surrounding this topic of the anus, it's not just in Singapore where there's a lot of stigma and taboo around it, but we think that across the borders as well, there's insufficient conversations about these topics that are really very important for our sexual health, our physical health, as well as our psychological health. So in that sense, we are really grateful to actually be able to invite our Malaysian counterparts, MYRainbow, as well as Dr. Martha Lee to have this IG Live session with us. I realized that I didn't actually elaborate on my own role. So I'm actually the research coordinator at SGRainbow. I'm SY. So for myself, aside from actually working on a lot of these programs that are developed through research, we found out through surveys and things like that, that there's a lot of stigma and taboo and insufficient knowledge around these topics, and that's why we are launching these programs. But we are later on in the year also doing more systematic research surrounding the lived experiences of LGBTQ community members. So there's that aspect of research-oriented programs as well as just research at large that I'm actually supporting SGRainbow on. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you Dr. Martha and MYRainbow for actually being willing to have this collaboration with us. We are super excited to have you here today. So maybe let's get started on this IG Live and start talking about our anuses. So Dr. Martha, what shall we start with?
Yes, so this is a very, very organic thing, okay? We have previously, the three of us, talked, myself and SGRainbow, we did a sharing and it was just so great. So I think we can, if all of you are willing, like to maybe start off what we did the last time, you know, like talk about our anal experiences, just to kind of like demystify this whole thing around our relationship with our anus. So when did you first connect with your anus?
So, anyone wants to take the ball?
Or sexually, I mean we use our anus from when we were, I guess, an infant, and our connection with our anus goes beyond sexual orientation and gender identity. Yeah, but so I guess I should ask, like, when did you first connect with your anus, sexually or romantically?
13.
13, okay.
You want to share a bit more?
That's how I started connecting to it sexually, physically as well.
How did it happen?
So yeah, so you're talking about self-exploration?
Oh no, it was actually my classmate who actually introduced me to the pleasure of anal sex.
Wow.
Yes.
Was it like self-experimentation or more like actually experimenting or more like a conversation kind of thing?
It started off as a conversation, and then, you know, I still remember the situation was he actually came over to my house, and then, you know, us being teenage boys, being in secondary school, and then, you know, we were like playing games and stuff like that. And then I still remember like we were playing like the game called The Sims. So we actually like tried like to like, you know, have like two Sims, you know, sleep on the same bed and stuff like that. And then that's how that conversation started. And then my friend asked like, you know, do I want to like, you know, try doing some stuff? And yeah, one thing led to another. So yeah.
It's really about getting that kind of like exploration through like you know, games and then kind of just experimenting.
It was. I mean, like, it never crossed my mind like, you know, that could even happen. So yeah, it was definitely eye-opening.
Yeah, sounds like a positive first-time experience. But yeah, having said that, maybe you can talk about age of consent in Malaysia. In Singapore is 16.
For Malaysia, I think officially, legally, it's 21.
Okay. So I think a lot of times we begin to be sexual even before the official age. And yeah, I'm glad it was a positive experience for you.
It was with a peer. So, I mean, we were in the same class and, you know, and we kind of clicked. So, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. Okay, so how about I don't know, Nish? Oh, I can go.
I can go. Don't worry about it.
Okay, you go. We are all eager to go. Okay.
Yeah. So I was sexually active from a very quite relatively young age. Like I started like experimenting since I was like 15. So I really didn't know anything about like when it comes to sex. Like the most that I would know is like when it comes to like pornography, but other than that, it's like I have no clue. So when it came to sexual interactions, it's like I'll let you do your thing, you know. So it didn't really there weren't a lot of positive experiences, but I thought that was sex, you know, like, oh yeah, this is how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to hurt. Yeah, but then like as I grew older, it's like, oh, maybe like I heard experiences from my peers. It's like, okay, maybe it's not supposed to hurt. Okay, so it's still a work in progress, you know, to discover myself, discover what my likes and dislikes are. Yeah, yeah, that's pretty much it. It's still an ongoing process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's
I think
why.
sure. And in response to what Nish just shared, I think it's always an ongoing process, right? I think regardless of the age, I think until the day we die, likely we are still learning more and more about ourselves, in terms of our sexual health, our sexual well-being, as well as just what clicks for us. For me, I think I'm gonna give one physical story, so the non-sexual one, so that we get a bit of diversity of experiences. Then I'm gonna give one maybe more related to sex, since we are on the topic of sex, right? So the non-sexual one, I think it was about 11 or 12, when as in I think that was the first time that I got a really really high fever, and they had to use those kind of medicines where they put it up your anus, right?
Yeah,
Because I think at
pastry.
that yeah, correct. So at that point in time, essentially my fever wouldn't go down, and that was the only way they can do it. And that experience actually was what made me feel really uncomfortable about thinking even about anal sex at that point in time. Because the thing is, I didn't know how to relax, right? At 11 and 12, they're not going to ask you to relax. They're going to stuff it up to make sure that your fever goes down. Right, so to me it was uncomfortable. Things are not supposed to be going up there, but it's going up there. I didn't know how to react. So that memory actually stayed with me very much until the later stages of my adulthood, where I'm actually exploring myself more sexually. And I think during the early stages of my sexual explorations, which would be in my 20s actually, very much many of these experiences relating to the anus is uncomfortable, because I always had this association with that medicine that's put up my butt, right? So, but it did after a while take a long time of understanding from school, from Canada. So when I was studying in Canada, there was a lot of conversations about, oh, actually you're supposed to relax, right? You're supposed to talk to people and communicate when it's uncomfortable or painful. And from there on, I think given that it becomes a lot more dynamic and an experience that is very much about learning how to enjoy the process. From there on, I think something that was, I think, borderline traumatic from 11 or 12 became something that's a bit more enjoyable for me. So that's me, just trying to bring in a bit more physical, like non-sexual part, and then relating it to my sexual experience today. So, Dr. Martha, what about you? Your story about the anus?
Yes, so yeah, just to add to what SY just said, is that our relationship with our body is an evolving one, and the first time experience sometimes is not positive, and it's really okay to heal it and also to give it space to evolve, which I think what happened with SY. So coming to me, I yeah, the anus has always been like a taboo subject, and I had sexual partners who wanted to try anal sex with me. It was there was no lubrication. It was painful. It didn't do anything for me, and even when I tried it with lubricant, it also didn't do anything for me. I do feel pleasure, but I am not able to have orgasm through anal sex. So because of that, it is not something that I would consciously choose for or even suggest to my partners. I would just say I would rather not, I'll pass, but I'm happy to do anal sex on you. In fact, a lot of my partners, they have not had anal play or anal sex. So because of my training, I would often tell them, this is a bit of a TMI. Then I would often say, hey, I'm really good at anal play. I'm very good at deflowering anal virgins. So since I'm trained, would you like to try it with me? And then I will go through a few like safety precautions so that they feel really, really safe. So one of it is which I always share, is that I'm not going to force you to do anything you don't want to do. So here's your anus and here's my finger. So I'm not going to shove my finger in. I'm not going to make you feel uncomfortable. I don't want you to have pain. So instead of that, what we're going to do is just massage around the muscle and get you to relax. Breathe into my finger, for instance. In my work, there's this term for it actually called anal breathing. So breathing all the way down into your anus and visualizing your anus opening up like a flower. So that really kind of helps people to start to really connect with that part of their body that maybe they don't connect in that way. Because in order to have pleasure, you really need to reduce the amount of possible pain. So yeah, I was just tell them, breathe into it. Can you feel where my finger is at? And now I say, okay, so now I'm not going to move my finger. You move yourself towards my finger. So they push against my finger and they do it at their own time, at their own pace. I might even say something like, hey, you know, let's just try it for 5 minutes. If you don't like it, we can always stop. So things like that is really, really important. And of course, the use of lubricant. So previously, in the, you know, the sugar and spice sharing that we did, this time we're doing it publicly. So we talked about the type of lubricants that is useful. So I'd love to find out from all of you what kind of lubricants you use, if any, and what you recommend, because I'm sure people will be very interested, right?
Anyone wants to take the mic?
I mean, the simplest form of lubricant would be water-based lubricant. I mean, that's the most available anywhere. You can easily like get it like probably in 7-Eleven and any local pharmacy. So that's like the most easily accessible, and the one that's I know for sure is actually safe to use with condoms. So that's definitely like my go-to, unless if you're feeling a bit more exotic. Of course, they have like, you know, flavored and even scented lubricants as well. So depending on the mood, yeah, and yeah, I think that's my go-to usually.
Yeah, my
What
answer
about
is
you,
like the
Nick?
same. Yeah, my answer is like the same. It's like the most convenient. It's the most accessible. Yeah, it's the most accessible. And also it's like it's easy. Water-based lubricant is easy to wash off. So it's like it's the simplicity
Yeah.
for me. Yeah. That's it. I don't think I've tried any others, but yeah, that's my preference.
Water-based would be the go-to as well because it's the most accessible, right? But I think the other one that we talked about during SNS, which I've tried before, would be silicone, right? So silicone lubes, while they are actually more effective in the sense that as in I think that it's a bit more smoother, right? So, but at the same time, it stays a lot stronger. So when you're trying to wash it off at a later stage, actually what happens is you'll take quite some time to get it off, and the scent is a lot stronger in terms of the lube. So some people aren't able to cope with that scent because they're like, you know, too strong. But for others, as in like it's the smoothness as well as the fact that as in it really coats through. I think that is effective. One thing I do not recommend, and I think people would probably have tried it before, would be using moisturizer. I know some people get urgent, desperate. Yeah, like, oh, we don't have lube on hand, so I'm gonna get the closest thing I could get, and the closest thing happens to be body butter from the body shop or something. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't use aloe vera also. That's not a thing. I don't think
No.
that's a thing, right? No. Yeah.
No, just
Mm.
don't, right? Because the thing about it is, I think Dr. Martha can elaborate a bit more on this, but the anal tissue, as in like it's thin. For some people it's thin and for others it's not. But in reality, as in like because it doesn't naturally lubricate, unlike let's say for women who people who possess vaginas, as in that's self-lubricating, unlike the anus. So the anal region, you need to use proper lubricants to ensure that you don't actually break the anal tissue when engaging in any form of intercourse, whether it's manual or let's say full penetrative intercourse. So that's based on my knowledge, but Dr. Martha, do you want to elaborate on that?
Yes, so when you have tears in your body, vagina, anus, or in your mouth, it is going to increase your chances of STI transmission because of the mucous membrane exposure. You are exposing yourself to STI, but when there are micro tears, it increases the chances. So that is the reason for advocating for the use of lubricants and also, of course, with condom. So condom actually acts as a barrier as well, not just against STI. It's safer. of course, most condoms are already, at least in Singapore and Malaysia, they are all lubricated condoms. So it really helps if you don't want to, like go and get lubricant, at least the condom is already lubricated. But I think there's also gloves that you can use. And you can also put the condom over your finger instead of, just thinking about putting the anus into the, the penis into the anus. Also, you can start off with the finger first. So a lot of people don't think of like putting the condom over the finger, because if there's any cuts in your finger, that can be a gateway for STI. So, and also hygiene, because maybe you don't want to be exposed or have direct contact with the traces of feces that is in the anus. And it's perfectly normal to come across traces of feces. Just be cool about it, okay? We all, just have a little bit of brown. Just be cool. So when you're cool about it, and your partner will also be able to relax more into that experience. So for myself, I feel that there are many different types of lubricants on the market. As SY mentioned, there's a water-based lubricant, which is very common. And then I think what a lot of people do not know about is there is a silicone lubricant, which, as I mentioned, that you can actually get from the sex shops in Singapore or Malaysia. The issue is that they are not readily available. You do have to take the extra step to go and get it from a sex shop. So don't be too particular about the brand. Just ask for silicone lubricant, and then try to get a small bottle or even samples before you decide, like, okay, this is something that I like. So it's really, really quite individual what people prefer. So there are even anal specific silicone lubricants that you can get. And there are also lubricants that are numbing and tingling and warming. So you may want to think about whether that is enhancing the experience or actually numbing you so much that you don't feel what's going on in your body. Because I definitely feel it's really, really important to be completely present. So rather than like, oh, I'm very nervous, I need to take a lot of, I need to drink a lot, or I need to be on drugs or something like that. What that happens is because you are like not really fully in your body, you may not be truly able to say stop when you actually feel that it's enough. So like really taking care of yourself. Okay, so some people say they use coconut oil. So the thing about oil is that it can break down the condom. So if you're having protected anal sex, then coconut oil can break down the condom. Some people, someone saying silicone oil feels like using oil. Yeah, it's true. It feels very much like the oil, but it's not oil. So you have to use a bit more effort to wash it a few times with water and soap. So somebody said best to do enema flush before anal play to clean it out. So I actually have a different opinion about enema. So just a bit of TMI, I've actually been doing a coffee enema the last two days. I've done 3 already, 2 yesterday and 1 today, just as a way to detox, But anyway, TMI. So enema, yes, a lot of people feel that they want to be very clean before they participate in anal sex or anal play. But the reality is when you are using the water to flush it out and you are doing it regularly, what happens, it actually is disrupting the pH level, the ecosystem in your anus. And this can actually lead to more problems. So some people actually are for it and some people are against it. I'm actually in the camp of this is just part of who you are. We have become a generation of people that are like so particular about cleanliness, with COVID and masks and hygiene and everything, that I think we need to realize that our body knows how to take care of itself. There is such a thing as good bacteria. So doing too many enema here is like maybe not the best thing on the long run. That's my opinion. But what about the rest of you? What do you do? What do you think?
Definitely. Actually, I wanted to ask, what is the culture like in terms of in more how should I put it, gay culture terms, douching, right? So what is the culture like in Malaysia as compared to Singapore? Do you all actually have this culture where, oh, you're expected to douche before you engage in anal sex? Or if there isn't, then how do people actually negotiate? Or if there is, how do people negotiate?
To be honest, I don't think the topic of douching is actually widely discussed though. It's more kind of like a personal kind of thing, like, I mean, I guess for some bottoms, they make it a point that they douche every time before they have sex, to prevent any sort of accidental spills. Or maybe, they may actually be dieting on that day, eating clean, no fried food, no curry and all that, don't want to end up with having a literal diarrhea while you're having anal sex as well. I think it boils down to like what's your personal preference as well, and as well like what Dr. Mata mentioned about douching. So some people may have the idea, like, as well, like if you douche, it may actually affect your intestinal flora, which is the microbes that you have that are your natural occurring good bacteria in your anus. So that actually may also affect like your gut health and your digestive health and all that in the long term kind of thing. So I do know some people as well. They told me like, oh, they probably like douche like maybe like once a month, just to make sure they keep things clean, kind of like a detox process kind of thing. So some people do that. I think we don't really have a set norm of douching here in Malaysia. It's really down to personal preference, whatever you fancy.
Mm, okay. So I'm gonna bounce it to Nish in a bit, but I actually wanted to follow up on that. So if you do hit goal, right? If you do hit the Browns, as in normally, is there a way that people communicate or resolve it, or is there still a taboo around that topic when you hit the goal kind of thing? Are you aware? Hmm.
It is down to personal preference as well. I mean, some people would actually, mind it more than others, maybe due to a hygiene kind of thing. But some people would be more understanding. I mean, it's anal sex. It has something to do with anus, and sometimes accidents do happen, and it's okay. So I think it's really important to have that kind of mindset. Like, as much as someone would like to keep things clean and proper, then again, accidents do happen, and it's good to have an open mind, be nice, be kind, be courteous, and, just help the person to clean up and, don't make that person feel awkward or uncomfortable. So, because, it's a very vulnerable situation. But then again, there are other douchebags, legit douchebag, no puns intended. But yeah.
Definitely, definitely. I totally hear you on that, and I think Dr. Martha also shared a bit about that, right? So I mean, I guess for different people there might be different preferences, but ultimately it's actually being kind to one another, right? So knowing how to
Yeah.
actually talk about it and like helping each other clean out even if you do hit the goal, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mm. Now, what about yourself, Nish? When experiencing, be it in terms of your sexual, own personal sexual experiences, or in your understanding of Singapore's case, in terms of douching as well as some of the expectations, what's your experience like? Mm.
Okay. Well, uh, okay. From the beginning, when I first got to be sexually active, douching has always been like everyone talks about it. It's not only a Singapore thing, yeah, but it's also like a international thing. Like you see, and this, like you see videos on TikTok. It's like, oh, 3 steps on how to douche properly. Use a water bottle. Blah 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 blah. Like everybody talks about it, and on Instagram, it's like they make jokes about it, which is like, so I grew up thinking that it was shameful. That was always the mindset that I had, and whenever I did strike gold during sexual intercourse, like, I always feel ashamed about it. But there was this one person who I did it with, and he just told me it was okay, and I was super surprised. Like, what? Are you sure about that? And so that's when I start to realize, and like, it's your body. It's a normal bodily function, but it's such a sad thing that everybody just or at least in Singapore context, everyone just glorifies douching, like, oh, it's a must, it's a must, and I think it's time for a change. It's time for a change. Yeah, that's my few cents on, like, yeah, douching.
Mm, definitely, definitely. And I think even with mainstream media, things like Netflix, sex education, right? And they also introduced the topic of douching as well. So I think they're not to say that it's wrong or anything like that, right? But as in it's so normalized that there almost seems to be an expectation that everyone should douche, everyone should know how to douche, and everyone should make sure that there's no goal that actually comes out in the course of sexual intercourse, which kind of also brings up another topic that I'm curious to ask everyone about. Some of the kind of like expected to know knowledge that is in fact not something that is intuitive for us. For example, knowing how to engage in anal intercourse. Right, so what are your thoughts on that? As in the expectation that everyone should know how to have sex and anal intercourse, everyone should enjoy the process and know how to please the other person. Anyone can pick up the baton.
I'm not
Yo?
sure if that's an expectation, but more like we are just like fumbling into sex because we're not prepared. We don't know what to expect. Like sometimes the opportunity happens when you least expect it, and you just go for it. And what can happen is that you don't have the lubricant, you don't have condom there, and so you are likely to just go for it, say yes, and more likely to end up in pain. So I like what Nish said previously about pain, because there can also be pleasure in pain. But then there are also consequences, like I think as you get to know your body more and more, you start to realize, like, do I like it? Do I want to continue this? Or can it be done in a different way that can still be like pleasurable in a different way? So I'm not sure whether we are expected to know everything. I think we need to really normalize the awkwardness around sex, being unprepared, having pain, not knowing what to buy, not knowing whether to douche or not to douche. I think we need to normalize that. So I'm glad we're having this conversation. But having been there, it's like, how can we do better, right, for ourselves? Because ultimately, the more we know, the more we can advocate for ourselves and stand up for ourselves. So I'm very curious, like what you guys do with your partners. What kind of conversation do you actually say to your partner in order to take care of yourself? So I think that would be a really good sharing and modeling for the audience.
Definitely. I can start the baton this time because I realize I
Yeah,
haven't
go
actually
ahead,
shared yet.
because I don't have a partner.
That's not the point. Hey, that's not the point.
Oh, okay.
I think I got lucky because I started off this entire experience with I had good ones and bad experiences as well. But I think I met people who were willing to be patient to actually walk me through, right? So I had people who literally told me like after actually engaging in certain experiences, they were like, actually, this is something that I enjoyed. This is something that I didn't. These are some areas that you can explore that, but later on I learned to be called the erogenous zones, right? So areas that are sensitive for people where there's more nerves, right? So the anal region is actually one part that actually, be it whether you are male, cisgender male or cisgender female, or any gender that you identify with, the anal region in general is somewhere that people tend to enjoy because of the number of nerves that's over there. How do you actually go around stimulating the nerves without making people uncomfortable? And how do you tell people when you're actually uncomfortable? So the topic of pain as well, right? It was something that I got to learn more about, ironically in school in Canada again, where they kind of specified that while pain, if you are someone who's comfortable or enjoy pain in the process of sex, isn't always something that is expected during sex, right? So a lot of the times it has to do with, be it in terms of not relaxing enough during the sexual experience itself, or it could be not enough lube, right? So things like that, conversations like that, as in like I got lucky because I met the right people, and then I happened to go to the right school that happens to offer education, proper education on these kind of conversations. And although I didn't do very well for that specific course, it was quite sad, but I think I got a lot out of it, a lot of knowledge that I wasn't actually able to obtain when I was in Singapore lah. Yeah, so that's me. So anyone can take the baton from me now.
Yeah, I just want to add, what SY just said, being people in positions of privilege, people who are sex educators, who are advocates, who we went out of our way to get this information. And those of you watching this, you are getting like some additional nuggets of information that perhaps other people will not have. And I think we need to be really gentle with people and be kind to people who have less knowledge than us. And so what can happen sometimes is the person who has less knowledge just happens to be your sexual partner. So being that ambassador of sexual wellness is not just when you put on the hat of sexologist or whatever. I think each and every one of us plays that part. And I think it's great to realize that I'm repeating myself. It's a journey. We need to be patient with ourselves. And there will be a time where something works for you and then it doesn't work for you anymore, and then things change. And that's perfectly fine. There's no shame around, oh, I used to be like this. I used to be a slut or whore or whatever you want to call it. Claim it, because that's just part of growing up. And we make so-called mistakes. And it's really important to acknowledge what's negative and also like take responsibility and heal ourselves.
But yes. How do you all pick up on communicating relating to sex, or things like, for example, how do you learn to actually talk and communicate during sex or about sex?
Do you want to go first?
Oh, me? I mean,
Yeah,
I can.
I'm still thinking about my answer.
It's
So yeah, go ahead.
I'm trying to like direct my train of thoughts because it's a really huge topic. Where shall I start? I mean, like for me, because I started young, and at that point of time, I actually do not have internet. So I actually go through the belief of practice makes perfect. So for me, it is more about like having the sexual encounters and discovering more and more about what your own body really like and how it reacts towards like different sort of stimulation and pleasure from the partner. So that's how I actually learn. I actually do not have the privilege of having internet access, going online and actually being able to look up such information. And the only thing I have was probably like a physical ad textbook, which doesn't even say much about anal sex. The only thing it says is reproduction and all that. So for me, it's a lot of about practical, having that encounter with that other person, knowing more about myself, discovering more about myself. And only when I was in uni, which was about like 5-6 years later, when I actually had access to internet for the first time ever, only then I actually found out about the local NGOs. I found out about HIV testings and all that, STIs. And things to make anal sex more pleasurable. And believe it or not, at that point of time, it was 5 years later that I discovered there's KY, water-based lubricant, to actually ease the pain and make it easier. So for me, all this while I was actually having dry or probably using saliva as a lubricant for having anal sex and stuff like that. So yeah, for me, it has been quite a journey. And my word of advice for people there is everyone has their own self-learning curve. Like some people may be faster, some people may be slower, some people may be more privileged, some people may be less privileged. But all in all, I think they should just take this as a journey of self-learning of, what anal pleasure may provide to you. And, there's no need for embarrassment. Everyone make mistakes, take it slow, learn at your own pace, and just enjoy.
Definitely. Different
Yeah.
learning experience for different people.
Absolutely, 100% agree. So, I just wanna. I think mine is kind of similar, but in my experience, let me see how to phrase. At the beginning, I think I said this before. I would just leave it up to the sexual partner that I'm meeting that night. So it's up to him. He can do whatever he wants with me, and I'll just be quiet. But now I like to think that I've learned more. So when it hurts to the point where it's a bit too much, I'm like, hey, stop. I'm starting to find my voice. I'm starting to speak up a lot more. So I'm very happy about that. And communicating a lot more, like, hey, like this, I'm sensitive this way, I like it when you do this, or that's not really good, let's do something else. So I'm pretty proud of myself. Over the years, I'm starting to have a voice. Yay, awesome. So yeah, I think that's very important, lah. As when it comes to hookup culture, yeah. But this is my answer to that question. Thank you.
Yeah, well done. So previously, when the three of us were together, we also talked about how it's really important to be with partners who are safe. When you say stop, they stop. And there have been cases where people don't listen to your no, or don't listen to whatever you want to say. Maybe at the heat of the moment, they didn't hear you, or they're just ignoring you, or they just don't care about you. They just want to take from you. it's really important to talk about what happens when this happens. So do any of you have anything to share about that?
I do actually, because I actually had encountered someone whereby, when I actually said no, and then, that person, continued with the course of action. So apparently, like, after the whole session and all that, like, I confronted him, like, hey, I already said no, like, why did you continue? Then what he told me was this. Oh, I thought like when you said no, it was kind of like a kinky fetish kind of thing, like no means yes. Then I'm like, no, no means no, straight up no. And then but that was how I came across like, situational scenario, like, it could be kind of like a power play kind of thing, like people like being submissive and then, saying no when they actually like, wanted more. But then again, we don't know. So it's best not to assume this kind of thing. I think like people should actually respect that other person. And when someone says no, to actually, just ask and check in with that person, because it's really important. Because like, you are not sure how that person is feeling, how that person is reacting. So I think it's really just a due diligence kind of thing to actually just ask.
Yeah. So on that note, a lot of people just jump into bed, just like the movies. We just like taken by passion, and then things just happen. So perhaps having a little chat before and say, when I say no, I mean no. I have bad experiences. I need you to be sensitive about this, or whatever it is. I have a very sensitive tissue, or whatever. I'm feeling really raw down there at the moment, whatever it is. So when these negative experiences happen, I don't know about you, but I have this tendency to just cut off these people out of my life. Like I already had a very negative experience. I said no, and you didn't, and you still continued. And I personally, I'm talking about in my personal life, I don't feel it's my responsibility to go around and teach all my sexual partners. So in order to be safe, I will just cut the person out of my life. I will just not see the person anymore because the person has not been safe. So what about the rest of you, like SY and Niche?
Definitely. I think talking about it beforehand, right, and communicating during it, right, this whole idea of like, just because that person is stronger or things like that, sometimes they think that they can, just override your consent. That's not true, right? So a lot about things like red flags, like Dr. Martha just mentioned, right? So if the person continues, then you need to know that this is a red flag. You probably should not continue the relationship with the person, whether it's a sexual relationship or a romantic relationship, right? Conversations about before sex, talking about what are some of the safe words. I think Dr. Martha mentioned just now. When I say no, it really means no. Even in, I think, BDSM culture, kink culture, there are safe words that are being used, right? So when there are certain things that are being done, it must be discussed beforehand if it's out of the boundaries that was agreed before, right? So the thing about it is all these boundaries drawing and things like that. I know it sounds very technical. It sounds like we're almost drawing a contract before sex, but the reality is some of these conversations we learn through time, right, as to how we can better communicate our needs. We learn through time as to how we can better communicate to the other person. Oh, okay, these are things I can accept, these are things that I cannot. But I think there needs to be that kind of exploration and thought process before engaging in sex, especially with strangers, but also true with people that you know, right? Because sometimes the people that hurt you the most are unfortunately the people that you know or the people that you love, because they take it for granted that they think that they know you, right? But in reality, there might be sometimes that I just don't feel like it, right? And you need to respect me for that. That's just I'm all over the place. I'm so sorry, but yeah, just some of the thoughts that I had. Nish?
No, don't say that. You're not all over the place. So
Yeah, it's good.
yeah, it's good. That was a good point. Whatever you said is what I was gonna say. Honestly, it's just communication is just so important, and I wish I learned that. I wish I had that from the beginning. I think a lot of what we know about sex from a young age was from pornography. And pornography doesn't say like, oh, let's have sex. Are you okay with that? They don't say this kind of thing in pornography. So I'm not saying that pornography videos should incorporate that. I think that's a bit unrealistic for their standards. Yeah, but I wish there was another outlet where everyone else could learn. The importance of communication and consent. And that brings me to my next point, sex education, which is very important. Yeah, so when I had sex ed in school, I didn't tell anything about consent, which is like the most important thing. So yeah, I think that needs to be someone needs to rewrite the syllables. Yeah, that's oh shit, that's a bit controversial to say. Sorry, MOE. But yeah, that's just me.
For sure, definitely. And I think there's a lot more that we need to do and to actually, unfortunately, there's a lot more that needs to be done in our education system to introduce these conversations, lah, right? For us, oftentimes we think of sexual assault in a certain model, right? It's often male perpetrator, female survivor, and it's always one way only, right? It's always penile vaginal penetration. But what about the LGBTQ community members, right? When someone forces anal penetration, is that sexual violence, right? And then if it's just, let's say, a finger into another person's anus, is that sexual violence, right? On my note, it is, right? To make it clear, it is. But I think a lot of people don't recognize that, and they start blaming themselves when they feel uncomfortable. They start feeling shame when they are actually sexually violated. They think that, oh, it must be abnormal that I feel violated. This is not penile vaginal penetration anyway, right? Not true. All of these are sexual violence, and we need to acknowledge that, and we need to find a way to actually address these lack of knowledge within the society. I think this is true across borders, lah.
I think we have this tendency to always give people benefit of doubt because we are nice people, but then we have to live with the consequences and the outcome of what happens. So with time and experience, as I got older, I realized that the person that I really need to be responsible for myself is me. I need to take care of me because no one's looking out for me. And it's very, very important when it comes to all kinds of sexual activity that you feel safe with the person. So talking with them, asking them about their sexual history, when was the last time they had an STI test? I think these are some things that maybe we are not getting from the schools because of lack of sex education or no sex education. So on that note, I really want to also talk about the use of sex toys, right? Do you all use sex toys besides the use of your fingers or your penis? Like what toys do you use? What toys would you recommend?
Does a living sex toy count?
Sorry?
Does a living sex toy count?
Living sex toy. Use me as a sex toy.
Yeah, just saying. Sex toys, I mean, like dildos, masturbators, like, the Tenga cups and stuff like that. Personally, I don't really like dildos because I find them uncomfortable, and some of them are actually like, they're not like the human anatomy whereby they're more flexible. I feel like they are a bit rigid at point, maybe even plasticky. So even like the silicone one, I still feel like it's a bit plasticky and I don't really like the texture of it. So I rather like, use my own finger if I really do desire to perform anal stimulation on myself. But that's me.
Yeah, I just commented, sex toys are so expensive, so I've just never tried. It is really expensive, and also like, where I live, it's not a lot of privacy, so it's bound to be found by my parents. So I don't want to take that risk. Maybe if I do have a partner and he has any sex toy, yeah, sure, I'd love to try, but owning one, maybe not now.
I echo that. I think sex toy, sexual health industry, unfortunately, is still very commercialized. It's still a really expensive industry to dabble into. So I myself, it took me quite a long while before I got any, and I myself still haven't truly learned to enjoy it, but that's more of just myself, lah. Maybe I haven't gotten the right one, I'm not sure. But I think integrating sex toys into self-exploration. I think, okay, the thing about it is, right, on one hand, we are trying to advocate for safe self-exploration, which honestly, I feel like sex toys provide a really good avenue, but on the other hand, it's so bloody expensive that sometimes I'm kind of like, I don't blame people for preferring to just go out and having sex with other people because it's honestly a cheaper option. So I'm just very conflicted about this whole thing. Like, I just wish that sex toys, sexual health checks, and just everything related to sex can be cheaper. But at the same time, I also understand that unfortunately it's also demand and supply thing, lah. Right? So it's kind of like frustrated.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, the use of sex toys. So of course, as a sexologist, I do get access to a lot of sex toys. In fact, so many sex toy companies, they want to give me their toys for free. They want me to review the toys for them. I think sex toys are, honestly speaking, overrated. I feel like it's really important that we are more connected with ourselves, with our voice, with our bodies, rather than just use sex toys as a fast way to get off. But I do see, as I get older, I do see how sex toys can be useful for people with disabilities, with pain, with arthritis, or conditions like that. The sex toys, as we get older, our body is less sensitive. So then we may enjoy the variety of having like different kinds of vibrations on our body. So I totally get that. So on that note of sex toys, I think there are sex toys of different budgets. I think it's more important to look at what the toy is made of, like what MYRainbow said, even silicone, they don't feel good. I think nothing feels as good as the human skin. There are toys that are made of cyber skin, but it's very difficult to clean them and dry them in our humid climate. So silicone toys, at least high-grade, medical-grade silicone toys, they will not erode even with high temperatures. So when it goes to the anus, the vagina, it's not going to start to melt down and things like that. So the quality of toys does make a difference. But I think what happens is it doesn't have to be expensive. It's just that certain brands are expensive. So the more well-known brands will tend to be more expensive because they have a lot of marketing and advertising around their brand. So I would say look for the equivalent, but not branded, and you can still have a good experience. So I really wanted to talk about sex toys because I wanted to do a shout out about the fact that when you put a sex toy into the anus, please do not put it into the vagina, whether it's the penis or sex toy or finger, because there can be a cross-contamination. So that needs to be said. And also, it's really important to clean your products, your toys properly, your hands properly after you engage in anal play. And also for anuses, because it's different from the vagina, it's really important when it comes to sex toys. Like people don't know like what to get, what's like, you know, just use a dildo. But what happens is sometimes we hear of stories of the dildo, you know, getting stuck or getting stuck up the anus. So it's really important when you use anal toys to make sure it has a flare base, meaning the toy and then it has a base. So it acts as a stopper to prevent it from going all the way into your anus. Because, you know, sometimes you cough or whatever, and then it actually pulls the toy into your, up your rectum. And so that is also another precaution. Yeah.
Okay. Can we, I know we've got about 6 minutes left. I actually want to spend some time talking about three things: foreplay, relaxation, and aftercare. So shall we try and spend a bit of time talking about that? Because I think there is this myth that it's okay to just plug in, go, and leave. And I think that's a big misconception. Dr. Martha, do you have any thoughts on that? Like foreplay, relaxation during play, and aftercare?
Yes, so far we have talked about the importance of communication and consent, the importance of starting slow, what I mentioned, like progressively, like with finger first. I think some people, the longer you go on, the more your body will start to feel sore, you see. So it's really important to also not feel that you have to, in that session, progress immediately to the penis. So yeah, even like, even finger, you know, even if the penis is not inside, I'm already inside, you know, the finger is already inside. So we are connected in that way. So that's another way of reframing so that you don't fail that every time you engage in sexual activity, as long as it's fun, it's pleasurable, it's good, then it's a win. So I think we need to change that mindset, like, oh, you know, I'm bad, or I can't do it, or things like that. Yeah, so that's what I have to say about the before or during. And then aftercare, yeah, you know, ask for the aftercare that you need, whether it's the cuddling or the showering together. That's very important. So what about the rest of you?
Personally, I think the mindset is really important. Like, I feel like a lot of people like the mindset of when engaging sex is like, the ultimate goal is like, it's just about like orgasm for them. But it's actually more than that. Like, I feel like a lot of the bottom friends that I've spoken to, like, like they feel like if they couldn't anal orgasm, they feel like they have failed as a bottom. And it actually leads to like nerves, anxiety, and bad performance in sex. So I think like it's really a mental kind of thing, a mindset kind of thing that they have to change. Like, sex isn't all about, having that perfect like fairy tale moment or orgasm moment. It's more about as well the connection that you share with that person, like, be it like physically or even mentally. So it really like it's good to if people could actually like clear their mindset and like not put too much pressure on themselves. So that's one of my advice. And also like foreplay, as well as mentioned as well. Like for me, I actually still discover it recently. In fact, like the pleasures of foreplay and easing up to anal sex, especially like one of my partners, what he did was actually engage in very long term and really good rimming. So for me, that really actually helped to build the anticipation and pleasure for anal sex, and that definitely really helped me to loosen up and enjoy anal sex even more. But then again, what works for me may not work for you. So I think it's really important again to really explore what works for you and what turns you on and makes you pleasurable.
Definitely, definitely. Yes, definitely. The idea of basically self-exploration, everybody is different, right? So some people like one thing, other people don't. I've met people who love ear stimulation, other people hate it, right? So the thing about it is I think ultimately it's a lot about recognizing that it's not about the plug and play, but I think for even for me, I've always advocated for actually just even if you're just starting to make out, use your hands, explore around. If the other person also explores you and you find out that you don't like it, maybe just lightly let the person know, okay, maybe not this part, right? And then just exploring with different tools that you have. I don't just mean sex toys, but I also mean like your physical tools, just exploring around, even within the anal region, which I think, given that the theme is on anal organs, right, there's a lot to do, right? So I think one of the things that Dr. Martha mentioned in our Sugar and Spice session previously was massaging the anal region before actually engaging in rimming and fingering, right? So even if you are rimming, there are different ways of rimming. Explore, like you're gonna use your lips, you're gonna use your tongue, you're gonna use your probably not gonna use your teeth. But since for some people it's more enjoyable than others, especially let's say if you do like let's say shave the anal region, sometimes it's more sensitive than other people, maybe because it's freshly shaved, right? So I think all these are things that you gotta explore before you know, but don't reject the possibility before it actually happens, and also know that it's okay to take an entire hour to foreplay before you actually engage in anal sex. And if you don't engage in penetrative sex, it's okay. I wanted to also emphasize on a very important point on aftercare, because I think a lot of people think that it's okay to just shower and go, but I think a lot of the times, as in reality, people feel very abandoned after sex. There is that post-sex shame and guilt. I think it is helpful when people actually talk, right, to each other after the sex, right? Tell them like, I enjoyed it, right? If you enjoyed it, let them know, right? If you didn't enjoy it, it's okay to give some time away from the sexual activity. And once both persons have actually calmed down from the sexual activity, you can actually have that conversation and tell them that this was something that worked well for me, but actually there are other things that I loved. And there are other things that I didn't like as much, right? So it's okay to talk about sex after sex, but sometimes it's I think allowing yourself to cuddle, like Dr. Martha say, allowing yourself to shower together, or if you don't like to shower together, then each one of you can go and have your shower after that, and having that what I call aftercare time, right, post-sex care, as in like I think it's very very important to not let all parties leave with that sense of abandonment, shame, and guilt. So that's my little advice over here. I'm gonna pass the mic to Nish.
Oh, I
Thoughts on
love aftercare,
foreplay?
man. But yeah, that's I don't know. I don't know what else to say besides the points that have already been said. Like aftercare to me is very important because I always have the post-sex shame, guilt, always, always. Maybe it's because I've abandonment issues, but I think there's a whole other life that we have to do lah. Anyways, yeah, I always, always, always love aftercare. I think that's really important. It's really important for me. Yeah, and what else? Foreplay. when it comes to foreplay, it's something that a lot of the hookups that I have, they don't really do foreplay. So foreplay is something that I'm still discovering myself. I'm still discovering like, okay, which part do I like to be touched and all that? Because all of them like to plug and play, which I like to try out a lot of foreplay, you know. So that's something that I can't really comment much about because I haven't really had the most experience about it. But yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think foreplay also helps relaxes you. Yeah, that's what I heard as well, which is an issue for me because I'm always very tense. So I definitely have to, like, try foreplay. And I think it will help me a lot, definitely. Yeah, that's all I have to say about it.
Definitely. And I wanted to expand a short bit about here before we close off, because I know we are about time. But relaxing during sexes, and I think like foreplay helps because it gets the blood running, right? So, but another thing that's helpful, things like deep breathing, right, before you penetrate anything, even if it's just your finger, right? Ensuring there's sufficient lube. Like, it's okay to use 1/3 of a bottle of lube just for a round of sex. If it keeps you safe, if it keeps you hydrated in the anal region while you're having sex, I think what's important is your comfort. What's important is ensuring that you're enjoying yourself. But deep breathing, right? So things like, for example, talking during the sex, right? So is this too fast? Is this too slow? Or even letting, in Dr. Martha's term, allowing your anal to breathe in the finger or breathe in the penis, right? So sometimes that helps, right? So engaging and exploring what actually helps you relax, but more importantly, don't rush the process, because when the bottom is tense, it's gonna hurt, and the bottom is oftentimes, I wouldn't say it's universal, lah, right? But a lot of times they are not gonna be able to enjoy it when they're nervous and tense, and the top needs to learn to be considerate, lah, right? Because ultimately, it's a two-way communication, it's a two-way interaction, it's a two-way activity. Okay, I'm gonna maybe pass the mic back to Dr. Martha on this note.
Yes, I really like everything that we've talked about today, and
Dr. Martha is very overwhelmed. So much.
yeah, oh yes. So just to add a little bit, now I remember what I wanted to say, because I think SY I just gonna say SY is a sensitive soul and a beautiful person. So not everybody values the connection as much as as other people. But what I find that is that you have to remember what it means when we just had sex with someone. We have been naked, we feel vulnerable, we feel exposed, we've had an ecstatic experience, and just helping the other person to land a little bit back into their body is something just nice to do. So that's why the emphasis that we are talking about aftercare. Yeah. So any last words, MYRainbow?
Enjoy the journey and self-exploration. I mean, there's much to discover, and nothing to be embarrassed about, nothing to be fearful about. I mean, it's okay to be scared, but you will be able to discover the joy from anal pleasure.
What about Nish?
Communication is important. Communication is very important. Stay safe. Use lube, very important when it comes to anal sex. We hope we had a few people watching this live, so I hope that this was a very interesting session for everyone who's watching. I hope there's a few takeaways. I know I had a few takeaways. My takeaway was that foreplay is very important and it helps relaxes everybody. That's my huge takeaway from today. Yeah.
So maybe I'll also do my closing before I pass the mic for Dr. Martha to do the last words. But for me, I think, every step of the sexual process is important. And I don't mean just once you get into bed. I think even before you get into bed, that's important when we talk about consent communication. When you get into bed, it's not a plug and play. You can really just enjoy the exploration in every sense, and you can talk during sex, right? It's okay to tell them, I don't like your hand over here, I don't like your lips over here, I don't like your tongue over here. It's perfectly okay. And I think even when the plug and play happens, how do you introduce the plug and play moment, right? The relaxation, the deep breathing. After the plug and play, let's say orgasm does happen, good. right? So what happens after that? Do we help each other clean up? Do we talk about the experience? If orgasm doesn't happen, how do we reconcile with the fact that orgasm doesn't happen? It's okay, by the way, if orgasm doesn't happen, right? So if orgasm doesn't happen, but both parties are satisfied, perfect. If orgasm doesn't happen and someone is dissatisfied, then talk about what made it dissatisfactory. Then the aftercare, right? A lot about how do we feel better after the sex? How do we maintain a cordial or even a good relationship such that we are able to continue having that channel open for each other, so that if we meet again next time, it's not awkward on a relational level, and then on a sexual level, you can also discuss whether you want to continue this sexual interaction in the future. Just overall, be a nice human during sex is the sense I get. But I also wanted to thank everybody for joining us on the live call today. Super grateful that Dr. Martha and MYRainbow has agreed to actually join us on this conversation. And I really hope everyone learned something from this, because I definitely learned a lot from everyone on this call today. I'm going to pass the last words to Dr. Martha.
Yeah, it was super fun, and thank you everybody for joining, and feel free to forward this recording to your friends. You never know, it will benefit some people, and you know, just like anything, there is people who care for you. You can always check out SGRainbow and MYRainbow's activities. They put in a lot of effort. They are volunteers, and they really do this because they want to do something for humanity. So thank you, and stay tuned to all our events. I'll be doing more events with SGRainbow, so do subscribe to follow us. And yeah, thanks everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.